Welcome to the Six Hockey.
Gary scores!
Welcome back to the Six Hockey. I'm your host, Sammy Brzezowski, joined alongside the incomparable Simon Hendricks.
Hello, Sammy. How you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you so much for asking me. And we're going to have a wonderful time here today because we're going to be looking back at the OHL Priority Selection Draft from the year 2000. So to give you a bit of insight, the OHL Priority Selection Draft happens every spring, goes for about 15 rounds, where the teams in the OHL pick teams from all around Ontario and nearby regions. Now, this draft has seen a lot of talent throughout the years. We've seen NHL captains, all-stars, and Stanley Cup champions appear out of this draft. And today, we are going to start a new series of redrafting, knowing what we do now. So each team is going to pick a lineup. That's 3 forwards, 2 defense,
and one goalie. Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't know if you wanted me to finish that.
I thought it was pretty special.
Yeah.
Now, what we're going to do is we're going to make the draft picks, and then we're going to take a look at the teams and see who would win in a head-to-head matchup. Now, we're implementing a new rule. The player does not have to have played in the GTHL to be selected. So a wide array of talent in today's draft.
You know, I think that's really going to help our cause, just because looking at least this draft, if we were only to do players who played in the GTHL, we would be grasping at straws at some of it.
It would be a tough go. I mean, there's a lot of talent that just couldn't quite make it to the top level of pro hockey, but there are some big names on these lists, ladies and gentlemen. Now, today's teams that are making the selections will be Sammy Spitfires
and the Simon Soundwaves.
2 great team names that we definitely didn't spend a lot of time thinking of. Now, in order to figure out who will get the first pick, we're going to do a series of challenges each redraft to see who gets 1, who gets 2. So today's challenge will be rock, paper, scissors, best 2 out of 3. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. 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 So, after a hard-fought battle, it appears that Simon Soundwaves will select first.
First of all, that was a great round of rock, paper, scissors. I can't lie. That was, we had a couple ties going back and forth. That really had me on the edge of my seat.
Yeah.
I would say. Anyway, that is quite the important selection, because I seriously think, I don't know about you, Sammy, but I really do think that there is a clear number 1 pick. Now, you do have to remember, like we said, we are drafting a lineup. We're not just going by best overall players. So keep that lineup in mind. And with the first overall pick, the Simon Soundwaves will select, I think, the clear number 1 selection, Jimmy Howard. Jimmy Howard, longtime goalie of the Detroit Red Wings. He had a few 35-plus win seasons. He actually never won more than 2 rounds of the playoffs.
Yeah, I believe he actually had a losing record in the
playoffs.
playoffs.
He did. I just thought that was interesting considering how good he was for, all that time. But with that being said, I think he's the clear number 1 pick. You kind of look at this OHL redraft. There's not really any other goalies worth mentioning. I mean, I guess we're going to have to mention them at some point. But I'm going with Jimmy Howard, number 1 for the Simon Soundwaves.
I mean, that's a strong pick from Simon at number 1 overall. But what that does mean is he can't pick another goalie, so the second best goalie in this draft will be left up to me, so I can take my time in picking him. With that being said, let's get to my pick. With the second overall pick in the 2000 redraft, the Sammy Spitfires select Rick Nash from the Toronto Marlboros. I believe that Rick Nash was the most dominant player in this draft. There is another player that I'm sure Simon will be looking at, but Rick Nash was incredible. It's a type of player you don't see often in the league anymore. You see guys that come in, they're a little bit more finesse. He was a true power forward, a build that isn't in today's NHL, and I would be remiss not to include his Canadian talent, his gold medals, and just his overall dominance, really, on the ice. He won the Maurice Richard Trophy. Can't complain about that.
You know, that is a good pick, Sammy. I am a little bit shocked you did not go with another forward on this list, but I think if you are going from just a talent perspective, I think that is a good pick, even though I did make quite a shocked face.
Yes, you did.
All right. Now, I remember when I was in my playing days, I was a little house league hero. My friend's dad always tells me that you have to start a team with the goalie. Like, you kind of build your team from the back end up. And this might be a bit of a reach, but I'm just looking at the players in this draft right now. And with the 3rd overall pick from the New York Rangers and Tampa Bay Lightning, I'm going with defenseman Dan Girardi. Now, I don't know if this is just me galaxy braining my pick, but I always think that, you need a good defense to have a good team, obviously. And I don't really see that there are any clear number 1, number 2 defensemen in the rest of this draft that have played at the NHL level. Dan Girardi, he was arguably the best defenseman, if not second best to Ryan McDonough on a New York Rangers team that went to the Stanley Cup Finals in 2014, losing to the LA Kings. And he had the second most amount, second to Ryan McDonough on average ice time per game during that run. He spent 6 years as assistant captain to the New York Rangers, so he really had that leadership ability. And he was a part of a pretty solid Tampa team, the couple Tampa teams, at the end of his career as well. So I'm looking at my team. I got a number 1 defenseman, which Sammy I don't think has. I have an actual NHL starting goalie, which I really don't think Sammy's going to have. So I'm pretty proud of my first 2 picks.
Yeah, you definitely have a top 2 defenseman. I don't know about number 1 defenseman on that front, but we'll see about that. That opens things up for me. It's not the name I was expecting. So when a player falls to you, I think you got to take it. That being said, time for my pick. With the 4th overall pick in the 2000 OHL Redraft, Sammy's Spitfires are proud to select from the Thunder Bay Kings, Mr. Eric Stahl. Eric Stahl was incredible. Captain for, I think, a million years. Was an all-star basically from the moment we were alive until just a few years ago. He carried a Carolina franchise that was just kind of mid without him and Cam Ward. And he was really just a pure leader, a pure point getter. He was just
totally
putting tallies on the board. And again, won a couple gold medals on the way.
Yeah, that's right.
Playing with Rick Nash. So there's some chemistry on my team that I don't think
that's fair. Yeah,
that
that's
Simon's
fair.
team
That's fair.
has. But I got to say, Eric Stahl, I'm glad he fell to me because he's a true Canadian legend of the game. He's definitely one of the best players that has ever played in the NHL. Certainly a Hall of Fame lock.
I completely agree with you, Sammy. I think that's a great pick. I'm pretty sure Eric Stahl scored 100 points when he was only 20 years old, or maybe 21 years old.
I believe
sure.
so. I mean,
Yeah.
he was getting so many points throughout that era. I mean, he has a Stanley Cup.
That's right.
Obviously. It was the Hurricanes that won in 2006. He won a World Championship. He won a gold medal in 2010. Sidney Crosby, the Golden Goal. He was on that roster. And I got to say, I'm happy with the level of talent I have in the front end so far.
You know what? I think you're right, but if you want to talk about leadership ability, Sammy, just wait until you hear my next pick. With the 5th overall pick in the 2000 OHL Redraft, the Simon Soundwaves are proud to select Dustin Brown. Now, again, you want to talk about leadership ability? Eric Stahl was a captain for a while. I don't believe he ever captained a team to the Stanley Cup. Dustin Brown did that twice for the LA Kings. In fact, he was going to win the Conn Smythe, but then, Jonathan Quick was just an all-time playoff performance. But he had the most goals, assists, points, and hits in the Cup run in 2012. He made an all-star team back in 2009. He got the Marc Messier Leadership Award. I believe that was probably around 2015 or something like that. Please don't fact-check me. But, again, you want to talk about his OHL career, he spent 3 seasons with the Guelph Storm as well, where he was a very effective point production guy. And, Dustin Brown, I think, is a great pick, especially because he's able to play physically, shut down Eric Stahl a little bit. So, Dustin Brown, welcome to the squad.
I mean, we'll see how that goes. We do know that Dustin Brown can't drink out of a water bottle correctly. We've all seen that picture. We're going to pull it up. Yeah, that's embarrassing. I mean, come on, that's your
Well,
leader.
is this a drinking contest or is this a hockey
Well,
game?
it's a part of the game. Anyway, with that being said, that opens it up again for me, and I have some tough thinking to do. So with that being said, with the 6th overall pick in the 2000 OHL Redraft, Sammy Spitfires are proud to select from the Detroit Honey Baked Ham Hockey Club, Ryan Kessler. Ryan Kessler represented the USA in a number of different years. He was a dog on every team he was on. And he was one of those guys that you just hate to play against. He won the Selke in, I believe it was 2011. He was on that silver medal winning team in 2010, where they lost against Canada in the finals, and he was outstanding in that final. Ryan Kessler, he was a lot like Rick Nash in the sense that he had some build on him. He was a big boy, and he wasn't afraid to lay down the body and score goals and look good doing it. He played 17 NHL seasons. He was with the Canucks, the Ducks, and you know what? He actually spent some time down in Columbus as well. So, again,
Did he really?
you know what? He might have been rostered. So don't
Oh,
quote me
yeah,
on that, but I
really?
believe he did.
Oh, wow.
But obviously not famously. Famously, he was with the Canucks. And, in practicing with the Canucks, he got to shoot on a Hall of Famer, Roberto Luongo. And so now he knows how to score on elite goalies, is all I'm saying.
I mean, okay, I think you could say that for basically anybody. I mean, my captain, Dustin Brown, had practice going up against Jonathan Quick, so I don't know how much that argument has going against it. That was a good pick.
Who
though.
has the gold medal, though? Okay, I think it's time for Simon's pick.
All right, for my next pick, again, I'm thinking more of a lineup. I'm not really thinking talent. I'm thinking a lineup and how am I going to drain Sammy's lineup lifeless. And so with that, I'm going with another defenseman from the CompuWare Ambassadors, James Wisniewski. I'm terribly sorry if I mispronounced that. I believe it's Polish. I'm certainly not Polish, so I'm very sorry if I mispronounced that. But you're talking about a guy who played over 550 NHL games and recorded more than half a point a game during that career, plus a few, some good playoff experience as well with some good Chicago Blackhawks teams. Didn't win the cup with them, but still, I like it with the Ducks as well. So, again, did spend some time between the AHL and the NHL, but I'm looking at the list of defensemen we have left. I think this was the clear second best defenseman in this list. I don't know how you feel about that, but again, this guy, he played with the likes of Shea Weber. He played with the likes of Dan Girardi. So a little bit of chemistry there. So again, I'm thinking of defensemen and how I'm going to shut the top end of Sammy teams down. And I think I've done that with two very good caliber NHL defensemen.
I mean, certainly not a bad pick. I mean, he had 274 points in 552 games. For an NHL defenseman, that's incredible.
Yeah.
With the 8th overall pick in the 2000 OHL Redraft, a little bit of a tongue twister on that one, Sammy Spitfires are proud to select from the North York Canadiens, Chris Campoli. Now, Campoli, he was drafted 227th overall by the Islanders. He played in a bunch of NHL seasons, I believe it was around 8, and he was never known as like a big guy. But what he did was play very big. He played very well defensively, and I think I need that on my team in order to combat the offense that you have. And maybe, throw some wrenches in there. But you might think, Chris Campoli, he might be a bad guy, if he plays very big. He actually, in 2004, won the OHL's Humanitarian Award. So, good guy, good team, good teammate.
Wow, I did not know that he won the Humanitarian Award. That, that's some locker room morale to the team. You never know. Mm-hmm. You're going to need it going up against my guys because we got quite. I think I'm going to keep sucking the life out of your team. That's kind of just weird. Now, if this is a 7-game series, I don't know. We'll see. All right. Chris Campoli, that's a pretty decent pick, I think, like you said. Okay. Defenseman.
All right. I didn't say okay.
I've just played. But with my next pick, in fact, the 9th pick of the 2000 OHL Redraft, I will be selecting centerman Matt Stajan. He played with the Toronto Red Wings and Mississauga Senators of the GTHL, just worth noting. I know we weren't limiting to that, but just worth noting. He then played with the Belleville Bulls in the OHL, where he amassed 206 points in just 182 games. And then he played over 1,000 NHL games with the Toronto Maple Leafs and Calgary Flames. And he really kind of cemented himself as a great, skillful, two-way forward who can play both ends of the ice really well and can play with just about anyone in the league. And if you want to talk about leadership and IQ, this is an interesting point. If you want to talk about leadership and IQ and just kind of a real sense for the game, he was actually hired by the Flames in 2024 as a skills consultant for both the NHL team and their AHL team. So Matt Stajan, welcome to the team. We will surely love your leadership and skill.
I wonder what skills consultant actually means. Probably just a way to
Yeah, I was
free
just gonna
parking
say,
space at
yeah.
the Saddle Dome.
Yeah, I was going to say he's probably run out of money. So he's like, hey, I can dangle the puck around a little bit. I don't know.
All right, I'm not super happy with this draft, but I think that what my draft and what my team has is a lot of chemistry, like I've mentioned, but it's a team that gets along. You know, good teammates, like I mentioned, humanitarian award for Chris Campoli. Now, on my team, I want someone who will have some fun and, you know, get the boys chuckling a little bit.
That's like the third time you've said this.
Right? But you know what? I think teams that like each other, they win cups.
You know,
There's a
you know what
bond.
team likes each other?
There's a bond. What team?
Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah, right. Anyway, that being said, let's get right into my pick. With the 10th overall pick in the 2000 OHL Redraft, the Sammy Spitfires are proud to select from the Whitby Wildcats, defenseman Paul Ranger. Now, Paul Ranger, I know him for one thing, right? I know him as a Toronto Maple Leaf. He didn't play that much, I will say. Paul Ranger, he played 5 NHL seasons, just with the Lightning and with the Maple Leafs. What he's probably most known for is a shootout attempt in which he tried to kick his stick
Oh, that was Paul
to
Ranger.
score. That was Paul
Was it
Ranger.
really? I did not know that.
It made, I believe, Randy Carlisle at the time
Really?
just
Wow.
chuckle laughing. It was in a preseason game, but that kind of guy is
okay.
fun to have on a team. That's the guy that the guys can rally around, the troops can get going. So I'm happy with that pick.
I'm not gonna lie, he was not on my draft board. Again, we were both born in 03. Yeah, you're 03.
Yep.
Yeah. I didn't even know that guy was a guy. I didn't even know
Fake
he
fan.
existed. Yeah, I a fake fan. Yeah. All right. Well, Sammy can be laughing and, I guess the Sammy Spitfires can be laughing and chuckling on the golf course once my team sweeps him in the playoffs. All right. With my final pick, I need a forward. I need a winger. That is why I will be selecting as my last pick from Dartmouth College, Lee Stepniak. He played over 900 NHL games between the Blues, Leafs, Flames, Bruins, Penguins, Rangers, Jets, Devils, and Hurricanes, a true example of an NHL journeyman. But his rookie season with the Blues was his best season, where he put up where he put up 27 goals. Again, he was kind of a player where I didn't really watch him too much because I was a bit of a later hockey fan. But from what I can see, he was the best forward still available, and I'm very proud of the Simon Soundwaves.
You can argue that he was the best forward available. He was a great puck doku guy. Still is a great puck doku guy. David Clarkson was also another name that we were throwing around.
You know what? I was thinking of David Clarkson, not really because of his Leafs tenure, obviously, but because he did actually win a Memorial Cup with the Kitchener Rangers back in 2003. But I was just kind of weighing two options, and I think I'd rather have Lee Stepniak than former 30-goal scorer David Clarkson.
The GOAT.
Some could say that.
He was traded for Nathan Horton to the Toronto Maple Leafs to clear out the contract.
Yeah, he was indeed.
I mean, this is kind of an anticlimactic way to end the draft. I mean, we all know I have to pick a goalie. There is one other goalie that was on my scouting list for this 2000 OHL redraft, so I'm going to pick him. With that being said, with the 12th overall pick, the final pick of the 2000 OHL redraft, the Sammy Spitfires are proud to select from the Springfield Junior Blues, goaltender Mike McKenna. You know, he was the only other goalie that played any NHL games from this OHL draft, but, you know, untested. He doesn't have a losing playoff record like my opponent's goalie, so maybe, you know,
Wow.
if he was given the shot,
Wow.
he would have carried a team to success. I mean, he played for a bunch of teams. I think he played a handful of games for like every team in the league. Ready for this? Florida, Vancouver, Philly, Arizona, New Jersey, Dallas, Columbus, Ottawa, Tampa. So, you know, he got to know a lot of people. And I think
If you say that he's a good, like a fun time guy.
well, no, that was one. He certainly knew and he knows probably how to get along with people because he was so exposed to it. And, you know, he's seen a lot of talent. He's probably seen a lot of these guys at their highest levels.
A lot have probably scored on him.
Well, you know, I mean, probably not. He only played 35 NHL games, so he definitely wasn't scored on that many times.
Well, I'm just looking at his little Elite Prospects page. He did have Goaltender of the Week a few times in the ECHL.
I mean, and that's not an easy thing to get. The ECHL is a solid league.
It is a solid league.
Yeah, as you can see, I had to work pretty hard to get these guys motivated to be on my team. But with that being said, let's take a look at the final rosters. First, we'll take a look at Simon's roster. Simon picked Jimmy Howard, Dan Girardi, Dustin Brown, James Wisniewski, Matt Stajan, and journeyman Lee Stepniak. Now onto my team: Rick Nash, Eric Stahl, Ryan Kessler, Chris Campoli, Paul Ranger, and Mike McKenna. Now, let's discuss, because I would argue, and you can disagree with me.
Yeah, please argue.
On the
Argue away.
offensive front, I do have a better forward.
I would agree with that, for sure. I don't think I can replace... I mean, as good as Matt Stajan and Dustin Brown and Lee Stepniak are, I don't think there's anyone I could have picked that could replace the star and firepower of Rick Nash and Eric Stahl.
And you can argue that, obviously, Dustin Brown, he was a captain, he was a leader, he was strong defensively. Dustin Brown was never the best player on his team.
Neither was Ryan Kessler.
You could argue he's the best player on the Ducks.
Really? Corey Perry and Ryan Getzlaf on that team?
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's a good point. But Rick Nash, Eric Stahl, certainly the best players on their team.
Yes, certainly.
Best players in the league at one point. Both of them, at one point, I can argue, was top 5. Rick Nash, certainly.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Now, with that being said, the defensive core is an issue for me.
I was going to say, your team's probably going to outshoot mine like 30-16.
Mm-hmm.
But I bet 4 of mine will go in and maybe 2 or 3 of yours will go in.
That's the thing, because the real problem lies in the goaltender difference. Let's take a look at the goalies' head-to-head matchup here. So just look at that staggering amount of games that Jimmy Howard, or James Howard, as he's known in the OHL selection draft, has over my goaltender, Mike McKenna.
Well, I'm just looking at his NHL record here for Mike McKenna. 7-17-3 is not an awesome record.
You know, it's not. I don't have much to say about that. It's not that great. But you know what? He was, 7 wins.
That is not great. But at the same time, I don't want to seem like we're dogging on the guy. That's 7 more NHL wins than anybody I know. So
yeah, I mean,
there's something to that.
Just to get to the NHL is a feat of itself, especially with the odds stacked against you. Ones that James Howard II probably didn't have.
Exactly.
So if we're talking about in terms of like determination and the just willingness to get there, my team might, be better.
I think of it this way. If this was a throwaway game up in Rochester, you guys might beat me. In a 7-game Stanley Cup playoff series, I don't think there is a chance in hell that your team beats me. Because you want to know what team has star players, gets along with each other, but has some defensive and goaltender inconsistencies?
What team would that be?
I'd be the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I'm smiling even though I'm a huge fan of theirs. And this was shot.
Huge fan. He didn't know who Paul Ranger was.
Sorry.
Huge fan.
Yeah, Winter Classic
Winter
legend.
Classic demon, if you will. But with that being said, I agree. My team just doesn't have the defensive prowess that your team has. So that means in the first ever 2024-25 summer OHL redraft, that's right, a lot of words, the away team, the guest, the Simon Soundwaves, takes the win. That puts me at 0-1 to start off the season. In the next OHL redraft, we'll be looking at the 2001 Priority Selection draft, and hopefully I can pick a goalie that has played more than 35 NHL games. I've been your host, Samuel Paul Bullard-Brzozowski, full government name. I've had a great time, and I will see you at the next draft. Thank you, Simon, for coming out and just dominating me. I kind of don't want to invite you back.
Well, I will be back, and that's, if we're going by government names, that's Simon Joseph Hendricks to you.
SJ.
Yeah, a little SJ, if you've ever seen The Blind Side. But I will be back to reclaim my crown. I know next episode, Sammy will be back. I probably will not be, but I am undefeated for now.
Keyword is for now, folks. Thank you. Welcome to the Six Hockey.
Get ready!